Hi everybody and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, brought to you by me, Mal McCannion, and my good friend and co-host Matt Goddard. Matt, how are you this week?
I'm fabulous, Malcolm. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Apologies to all listeners that we are a day or so late. Been pretty busy, I think, for both of us this week. I've been out on my little tour. Matt's been building IKEA cabinets, haven't you, mate?
IKEA cabinets and also piloting a Nurture Cloud around the country as well, so quite exciting time for that.
Excellent. All right, we will pass each other, no doubt, on a motorway somewhere in the Midlands. Anyway, we must get on because we have some news to talk about in the property sphere. So here comes our property news. All right, first up, we are into portals, and there's been a few little stories around the portals this week. First of all, I was, how can I put this, surprised, I think, to see that Connells Group has committed to Zoopla for 5 long years. So essentially this is a deal where they all of the Connells Group branches and properties over the course of those 60 months will be listed on Zoopla. Now, Matt, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, there's a lot of positivity around Zoopla over the last, I guess, 6 months or so. I know that people I speak to seem to endorse the quality of the vendor leads coming through, not only in terms of the increased volume, but the actual quality of them as well. So actually seeing Connells, which is still the UK's biggest agency group, 1,263 branches across 86 brands. Just rattling those stats off the top of my head, obviously.
It's amazing how you know that.
And so to see them locking in for 5 years is maybe reflective of that quality, but I'm sure there's also some savings that they're getting on their monthly subs, right?
You think? Yeah. So no, I think it's a strong endorsement, obviously, of Zoopla, and obviously a big headline for those guys too. I wouldn't be surprised to see a kind of drip of more and more coming through over the course of the next sort of 6 months or so. I think 5 years is a long time. I think particularly in, tech and all that sort of stuff. And actually, what does that mean for this particular sort of anchor brand? Having Connells in there, like you, I would be astonished if there was not some significantly sweetheart type deal going on that kind of locks them in for that period of time. But yeah, look, if anything happens to Zoopla over that period of time, then what happens to the deal, etc. So all of that stuff, I'm sure, is in that very confidential contract. But as a headline, I think it's really, really interesting. I think, Zoopla has picked itself up. Rich Hayes and the guys there have done a really solid job of kind of steadying what was a very listing ship for a while, sort of early part of last year and into 2024. But yes, I think it's a strong endorsement. I think it's really good for that particular business, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if they can actually build out, particularly when we get onto our next story, which is about one of their competitors, because they seem to be pulling in their kind of fangs a little bit, does CoStar and on the market, and not necessarily going as hard as they were promising back in 2023. So yeah, Zoopla, amazing job, well done, congratulations. On the market, let's have a quick dive into them. So over in the States, CoStar has announced, so CoStar owns On the Market, also owns Homes.com in the States, one of the challenger brands to Zillow, the Rightmove of the US. They also own Domain in Australia, which they acquired middle of last year for $1.8 billion. That's challenging the REA Group, which is the Rightmove of Australia. So they've got 3 massive fights on their hands, and they seem to have blinked in the States, because actually they have announced that they're not going to put quite as much investment into Homes.com, the American challenger, as previously, and actually they're now going to start to look at how they can make it profitable. Matt, what's your take on what that means for them, and also for On the Market and perhaps Domain too?
Well, it was an interesting background that we sort of discussed a few times on here, haven't we? That Andy Florence came out a couple of years back and said everything's going to be bright orange and Homes.com, and we're rebranding the world and all the football stadium, including London FC Arena and Manchester FC Arena, is all going to be Homes.com, and then dial back quite dramatically on that last year to say that it's going to be last year. It's only back end of 2025, wasn't it? But it's going to be the focus is on back end. Focus is going to be more on the underlying portals rather than the Homes.com brand. And I wonder if part of this is carrying on with that realization that we cannot dominate America with a single brand, and we cannot shift the needle in, or shift the dial in both the UK and Australia with that sort of consumer awareness, but also the profitability point is quite an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, because profitability is difficult, particularly if you are the third as they are in the UK. I was fascinated to see an on the market advert on telly yesterday.
Oh, really?
Last night.
I've not seen that.
It was the old one. It was the one from like 2022 from pre CoStar.
You weren't looking it up on YouTube, were you?
No. Although sad as I am, I do kind of go there and go, "Ooh, I wonder what that advert's like." No, that was actually literally, I can't even remember what it was. It might be Gogglebox or something random. It was it was the very, very old one where he's bursting through the wall with like the phone on his hand. That kind of indicates that, and I remember like 2023, they were like, we'd spent 40 whatever million pounds on advertising. We've advertised on the market. So, throughout 2025, they almost did nothing because they were kind of like, well, should we go for homes.com or should we go back to on the market, whatever. So now it looks like they've kind of gone, right, we're going to double down. We're going to really go harder on the market again. So, just a fascinating, almost kind of pivot from a marketing perspective. It would appear, again, listening to the jungle drums from over in the States about what they're doing over there, and then what does that mean over here, and the advertising on TV. It does seem like they are almost going back to the future, and on the market is going to be the brand over here. But I do wonder what that means for on the market, for the brand, for the the agents that are on there. Particularly if, as we've just discussed, Zoopla is now perhaps entering a little upswing as well. It's going to be dog eat dog, 2 on 3 fire, and does that just mean Rightmove rides off into the distance again while the other two just kind of scrap it out? I think it's going to be a really, really interesting time. Speaking of Rightmove, they had what they called their busiest ever Boxing Day bounce over Christmas 2025 a few weeks ago. Not surprising, I don't think, from a volume perspective. I think that, people there's been a lot of pent up demand in 2025. And this kind of feels like, it's people doing what they do, right?
That's it. It was an interesting one for me, sort of looking back over that, because I know you made a point a couple of weeks ago that when you were at Zoopla Boxing Day, you saw a lot of sort of referred traffic almost from people doing the adverts and seeing those Boxing Day bounces across. But one of the things that I saw almost a lack of was sort of on the social media. So a lot of the adverts placed in amongst Gogglebox, as you sort of touched on earlier, the Rightmove, Zoopla, and even the Upsticks. But actually, the Instagram Reels, the Instagram Stories, the Google paid ads, I actually saw almost a lack of any traffic coming through. Now, obviously, that's maybe to do with me and where I'm falling in custom audience and such like. But I wonder if more around the festive season and the sort of the traditional media is getting more focused than those sort of pieces. Maybe it's because a lot of the digital advertising platforms that we work with are more mechanical, and you have to press buttons and push things through Meta Business Manager and Google Display sort of things. But and there are those automated ones out there. I know Ray White, who uses Listing Logic, there's a lot of campaigns geared to go across those periods automatically. But it seems like the sort of the boom and the bounce maybe is because of the fact that those traditional elements were the ones that we as agents relied on during the course of that time.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So if you kind of picture what people are doing, perhaps it's almost like a tradition as well, right? Where you get the kind of turkey sandwiches with the mayonnaise slapped on them, and then you sit in front of your computer and search through properties on Boxing Day. It's kind of like, that's what you do. But I think obviously the big guys went hard at advertising as well, didn't they? A lot of people sit in front of the tellies, so they might be nudged towards, as you say, more traditional kind of activity, which is going onto portals and so on and so forth. So yeah, look, I think continue to think it's a great kind of thing that people are looking at, the property market on Boxing Day and whatever, and thinking we've got to get active, and having that kind of day in the year that everybody does that, I think is really good and really great for the market and for the industry. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how that kind of changes over time, and what happens in 2026, 2027. The stuff that you talk about from the social media side, whether that some of those searches are going to drift onto to AI, etc. as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see this year. But I think again, it just kind of speaks to as well, I think, what happened at the end of 2025. Basically, everybody was just a little bit kind of, we'd wait for the budget until the 26th of November. When that finally came, there's like, it's nearly Christmas, so we're not going to do anything. So everybody just waiting to get Christmas out of the way, and then suddenly now it's Boxing Day, so away we go. So agents I've been speaking to this week across the country in person have been saying it's started really really well, and that's kind of over been Wales, London, Slough. It's been seems to be pretty positive. So
that sounds like one of those T-shirts from the 90s, doesn't it? What is it? New York, Milan, Paris, or whatever, and you've got Wales, London, Slough.
Slough, yes, going to do the dizzy heights of Ipswich and Colchester today, so I can add those on as well. Brilliant stuff. That is our starting with our portal news. We want to just dip into some more on the property side around estate agents and a new HQ for Foxtons. It looks pretty. I was going to say snazzy, but that makes me sound like I'm in the 90s again. It looks pretty good, doesn't it?
It's obviously where I started cutting my teeth in London property way back in 2003, and the HQ that sort of. Yes, exactly. So I still had hair that I thought I'd get in there before you did. So the HQ had been moved from the sort of main Park Lane flagship office over to Chiswick Park, being a sort of purpose-built business park that was set around a lake, and at that stage there was only one or two buildings. I think there's now 12, with like almost a tower block in one corner of it. But the company's got to the stage where it served its purpose at the time, but actually now they've moved from building one, which is where I started, and I think they were there for nearly 25 years, across the road to building 12 with a brand new fit out. And I think you saw Guy Gittins' video on LinkedIn, didn't you, where he's sort of doing the tour and discussing it. So I think the monster continues to evolve, and see where it goes next. But it's great to see that sort of a lot of the things from when I was there are still continued across the road to building 12.
Yeah, it's an incredible space, and I mean their PR team and their marketing team and Guy himself and all that, it's just so slick, and it just looks amazing. Just like that is how to kind of it's a new building, people, but actually it now looks really sexy.
And I love the way they do the new car launches now. So like your Target car, and in the old days it used to be the Friday meeting. You go to it, you get given a new set of keys, and then the cars have been driven over by various members of the head office team to make sure you're collecting your new BMW 3 Series or your supercar or whatever it might be. Whereas now they're always filmed with a drone on top of a multi-storey car park, and guys handing them over. So they're really slick as well. But it's completely unintentional, and it is a direct impact of the IKEA stuff you alluded to at the start. But I've actually got my Foxtons Minis on the shelf behind me today for anyone watching it on YouTube. So there is the Flames one from when I first started back in 2003. But actually, if you are listening, they are die-cast, scaled-down toy models of the Minis rather than actual full-size Minis behind me. Because obviously my flat in Campbell has got space for that. It's like the place on the M4 as you're heading out of London that's got the Audis all arranged.
Exactly that. So it's just a phenomenal kind of marketing exercise. And I think one of the biggest challenges, obviously, is recruitment, isn't it? Or recruiting good people into businesses, into estate agencies and stuff. And I just think it's just a great recruitment tool. All this amazingly slick advertising. Why didn't you come work here? It's amazing. So well done to them. And it looks like they've got a very solid base to continue their growth over the last few years. Also in the property space, let's just a quick shout out to the Women in Estate Agency. They've got their new or their Not a Conference happening this year. They've announced it. It's going to be on the 5th of March, Thursday, at the Shaw Theatre in London. One-day programme. Very well worth having a look at that and making sure that you've got your tickets. Normally this sells out really, really quickly, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
Yeah, so I think you need to hurry to get onto that. And the final piece, Matt, just to make you a little bit sad, I'm afraid, London has replaced the North East as the region where sellers are most likely to sell at a loss right now.
That's good news because I'm not planning to sell, but it's gone from one region I lived in for a huge chunk of my life to the other region, hasn't it? So I think this... Are
you taking house prices down? Is that
exactly. Actually, no, the gentrification that I enforce on areas is doing the opposite normally, but that's more to do with just the places I can afford in London. But I think this particular one's been released by Hamptons, hasn't it? So it's this particular sector of London that they're really focusing on. Hamptons is known to be a bit more high-end, and we know for a fact that London has been hit hard with the prime central London prices, and we've talked about it on previous pods where just the volume of stock and the lack of buyers in London has made it very difficult for a lot of those sort of high-end prime central London PCL agencies. But I live in Camberwell, moved into this place 10 years ago, and the price hasn't really changed dramatically since we moved in, whereas the previous 10 years, you're seeing increases in price by like 400-500%. So there is that. If you look long enough, there are those changes to be made at quite a high level.
You're trying to make out that actually, overall, you have had a positive impact on it.
I do move to the areas where I prefer it not to get gentrified, but the steady march along the ginger line, or the overground as people call it, as people escape Shoreditch and move to cheaper areas, means that we have got some fabulous bakeries around here. That's the second time I said fabulous on this podcast. I need to stop doing that.
So good. Right, that is our property news this week. Let's get on to our AI and tech news. Okay, so plenty happening here. So we're going to just dip into a few of the stories. First of all, the Computer Electronics Show is happening over in Las Vegas, baby.
Why aren't we there?
Why aren't we there?
Next year, Mal. Next year.
People who want to sponsor us, give us some. Yeah, we'll get over there and we'll have a rare old time. And particularly, we will be able to look at robots. And you know how much I love robots. There's a few robots over there. There are ones that can do dancing. So there are various videos.
Ballroom dancing. We know that's your preference.
You know it. Actually, that's the niche that we need to get our robots into, isn't it? No, this was just kind of, I was going to say generic boogieing, but again, showing my age. Just kind of like doing some slick moves. But behind it was really weird. There's a video. We'll share it. But it's actually a video of a robot doing some dancing, and then in the background, they've actually got somebody kickboxing it in the face. A video of it. It's a Unitary, which is one of the Chinese mass-produced ones that we've mentioned a few times. There's various videos out there of them marching in unison with weapons, but also dancing. So I prefer the dancing ones. But then, there was a video behind it where it was getting absolutely kicked in. But then standing straight up again and coming back at the guy that was kicking it. So that's the Unitary stuff over from China. There's all sorts of other ones that are kind of helping out around the home. There's one where it's folding towels very, very, very slowly. So look, if you're patient in terms of your laundry, then this could be the robot for you. But Matt, what caught your attention? Perhaps rather more helpfully over there.
The highlight for me probably was the announcements from Amazon around Alexa Plus and the big ticket items. Anyone who's got like an Alexa device, sometimes, or a lot of the time, when you hear about these new launches, you have to then upgrade your hardware, right? So you have to go out and buy a new set of AirPods to be able to use Apple Translate as an example in terms of real time. You have to have AirPod 3 and the latest iPhone. But Amazon's announcement was actually 97% of the devices that are already out there in the world are compatible with Alexa Plus. And to set the scene and give the background, so we're all used to sort of barking at Alexa, and I use barking because quite often I say that and my better half barks, and then I get a jab in my ribs when she finally listens to this podcast. That it's a case of I'm not barking, but you say something and they're intelligent, aren't they? But they may be slightly dumb at the same time. You don't get the answer you want. It refers to the Amazon community and Alexa answer contributor, whereas this is going to be actual, similar to we're used to with ChatGPT and Gemini, getting an AI, large language model response through the Alexas. So they're becoming a lot smarter and be able to actually interact. So more and more of what we've done with, we're getting used to with sort of the ChatGPT voice modes and the Gemini voice, where you're going to be driving over to Ipswich, and I know that's a route you go on a lot to get over to Portman Road, so all of those various things. You're not saying, what's that on my left hand side? Is that the Black Cat roundabout, as an example? But you're you know these things, but if you were, then suddenly Alexa Plus has been able to have those conversational AIs, and like 97%, so the 3 or 4 we've got around our house, you'll be able to do that. 600 plus million devices are going to support Alexa Plus just straight off the bat, which is huge. But also at the same time, Amazon dropped an actual website for Alexa, which means that immediately you can actually start in the same way you do with ChatGPT and Gemini, actually interacting with Alexa Plus. Very much you do, with the prompt box and asking questions and getting those responses. So it's immediately dropped into its ecosystem, some really advanced AI. And so out of nowhere, it's sort of caught up, and that was all previewed at the Consumer Electronics Show. So quite interesting to watch, and obviously off the back of all their other announcements at the back of last year, means that Amazon is sort of coming back into the game. Probably not up with Gemini and ChatGPT yet, but certainly making plenty of noise.
Yeah, certainly makes my robots look a little bit frivolous, doesn't it?
I only dropped it in here because I know you love robots, and you would find something in there.
But yeah, no. So on the Alexa Plus, yeah, like you, I think it's just a genius move, right? So it's like almost these kind of like Trojan horses, where they've just been sitting in all of our houses forever, and we just, as you say, barked at them about like, you know, the weather and can you just put the potatoes on for 20 minutes and, you know, blah blah, and that's pretty much been it. But now actually these are kind of coming alive, and we're able to actually use them for something helpful. And I think it's going to change a lot. I remember when they first announced it, which was probably about 9 months ago, they were saying, you know, you can be in different rooms and it will remember, like, you know, who's who in your family and all that sort of stuff. And it'll remember the conversations when you go into different rooms. So, you know, if and when they kind of get all that really, really working. And as you say, they've now got the interface on, you know, on online as well. Then, you know, it's going to remember things and it's just going to be a phenomenal piece of kit. So, yeah, you know, out of nowhere, I think, like you, that suddenly we've got a new contender that actually could be really, really, really interesting. So yeah, good to.
Well, sorry, on the same bit as well. Is sort of I hadn't included it in the Alexa Plus, but actually it's relevant. Is your wearable that you always reference when we're talking wearables is actually being relaunched as part of the Consumer Electronics Show as well. So Amazon announced that. I can't remember. What's your one? Is it B? Be Happy?
Yeah. They quite.
So that's been given a reboot. There's various announcements around that as well. So they've come back in the wearable game pretty strongly too.
Yeah, they're talking about kind of sleeping giants starting to flex. And we've got a news story about Apple now confirming that it's going to be using Google's Gemini in Siri, basically. So, you know, Siri, again, been relatively pointless for a long old time since people have been able to chat with ChatGPT. Now what we've got is, that essentially it's going to be able to do really, really intelligent stuff using Google's Gemini. And I think that that's going to be, again, just a kind of step change in terms of people understanding and being able to use AI in their day-to-day. You know, kind of what Siri originally was potentially promised as and what, you know, Alexa was potentially promised as. Now we're getting that level of intelligence kind of baked into things that we use every day.
Yeah, it's an interesting deal, isn't it? So they've sort of got a bit of history, haven't they, with the deal that Chrome would be the default browser on Apple and sort of I can't remember, was it 20 billion that was involved in?
That's for the search, wasn't it?
That's it, for the search in there. And both Anthropic and Perplexity were runners in this, hopeful of being involved in this deal instead of Google, and almost by their absence, OpenAI weren't. But I think that's probably because OpenAI are actually gunning for Apple in that sense, aren't they, with the App Store and those sort of approaches. Yes, exactly. Johnny Ive coming across on the devices front, whereas Google's sort of taken that more, I don't want to say platform, because a lot of the AIs are basically becoming platforms for what we do, aren't they, or operating systems, but that provider, I know Elon's not taken kindly to it, has he? Obviously, I'm on first name terms there, but this idea
that actually,
yeah, exactly. But it's he's not taking kindly. I don't know if Grok was in the mix as well, but the idea that Google's on here, and there was the whole case through the courts last year around Chrome and whether that should still be owned by them. But I think this deal really means, for me, Alphabet are going to basically become the biggest company in the world, aren't they?
I listen. It's almost relentless, isn't it? So Alphabet, Google's parent company, is essentially, yes, kind of dropping Gemini into pretty much everything, and, you know, its own stuff like YouTube and Chrome, which we discussed last week, and all that sort of stuff. But yes, Gmail, but also now into fellow devices through Apple and elsewhere. So yeah, no, I think it continues to regain ground, shall we say. You know, like we said last week, it was kind of the punchline for, you know, Google was the punchline for most AI, kind of how not to do it this time last year. And now suddenly it's like, oh my God, it's actually just slowly going to take it all over.
Absolutely bossing it.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned Grok, and that's kind of our third story here in AI and tech news. Yeah, Grok, Elon Musk's Grok has not covered itself in glory over the last sort of 7 days, and mildly, yes. I mean, this was always kind of the way that it was going to go, but the news, in case you missed it, is that it has been allowing people to take any photo of anybody, right? So you might have put a very cheerful photo of you and your kids up on, on social media, and essentially Grok will allow you to essentially change clothes for them, make them almost naked, etc. And it's just been absolutely terrible. But it took them ages to do anything about it, right? Everybody was complaining about this. It was all, there was a lot of kind of revenge kind of imagery coming out. There was a lot of child sexual abuse kind of adjacent images coming out as well. It's been horrible, and it took so long. I think it was last Friday they finally changed it, but all they did was make it a premium feature. So if you pay enough money, then you can still do this stuff. And for me, it's just so awful, right?
Monetizing that side of things, isn't it? It's pretty horrific. But we know there's been controversy, and Elon Musk almost courts it everywhere he goes, doesn't he? And actually, he clearly loves that sort of side of attention. Yeah. And I can't even say allegedly, because that's not just if they get sued, it means we've got good distribution of this podcast. But it is horrific, and then the fact they've taken the opportunity to monetize that, and if there's people willing to make these off the back of such a horrendous set of sort of people sort of generating sexualized and nude images of women and children, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's just terrible. So I mean, there's a lot of governments now finally that are looking to ban it. India is one. It's been spoken about elsewhere. Spain, here in the UK, we're talking about how to stop it. But it's out there. These images are available now of people, and it's just horrendous. So this is when it goes wrong, when you don't have essentially ethical guidelines and guardrails at the top of the top that are meant to protect people. So it's been a terrible week, I think, for them, and it kind of speaks to why the likes of Apple are really not going to partner with Grok, because this is the kind of stuff that it attracts and that it does. All right, so that's more of the kind of large language model Frontier Labs news, and we wanted to dive into health, because there's been quite a lot of AI health news this week. OpenAI has unveiled ChatGPT Health, and says that 230 million, and they've got 900 million users, so it's a massive chunk, so that's per week. 230 million users ask about health regularly. So they've created ChatGPT Health, which they say is a kind of fine-tuned version of ChatGPT that's really kind of intended not to hallucinate too much, and actually be able to help you with your kind of health worries. Obviously, over in the States, this is even huger because of the healthcare costs and the system that they've got over there. But Matt, is this something that you would use?
Absolutely, and part of the OpenAI ChatGPT Health is also the connectors that come alongside it. So all your various wearables. I've actually got pals over in America, and as you touched on there, it's their default is talking to ChatGPT, and when it's a generic ChatGPT, you got to make sure you're doing the right sort of prompts and giving it enough context to get back what you need, right? Whereas with this health approach, it means that they've ChatGPT and OpenAI have already done that wrapper and layer around it to really make sure it's guided towards you want and has those guardrails around what responses come through. And the ability to upload your medical history, put your various wearables connectors into there, is something I definitely will do. There is that data privacy bit and people's concerns around that, which I'm sure will throw up concerns. But at the same time, obviously, as OpenAI launched this, Anthropic have launched something very similar for Claude. They were already quite heavily involved in healthcare and life sciences. And so there's been announcements around that, and at the same time there was a story in The Guardian about Google AI overview returning dangerous and alarming summaries, and that for me was quite an interesting one, because Google have moved to sort of put guardrails in around those and remove the links and such like, but it's if nothing else, it's the shift for Google from being we're passing on dangerous links from WebMD or other sites that it's basically referring you off to suddenly, because of Google AI overviews, they're actually the ones that are in the crosshairs for being targeted here, aren't they? So they're no longer a portal in the way that you explained it in the past of here's some links, go off to those websites and read dodgy things. But because the Google AI overview is summarizing and providing that data back, they're actually the ones that need to take responsibility now. And that's quite an interesting shift for Google as a business.
Yeah. So they're kind of on the hook because they are actually, essentially regurgitating this stuff without any validation, and that's been that's a real problem for them. So they've done what they did when they first brought out those images that where you had the kind of black Nazis and things like that. They've just killed it, got rid of it. Anything to do with health, don't mention it. Just do normal searches. I'm sure they'll come back, particularly as the other labs are using the opportunity to really dive deep into health. And as we've just discussed, Google is slowly but surely taking over the world. I'm sure they'll come back strong, and the Google Gemini Health app will probably race to the top very, very quickly once they do sort it out. Right, one more story in our AI and tech news. Just wanted to talk. We spoke about this probably about a year ago, which was basically it was this timeline for 2027, where this a leading artificial intelligence expert guy called Daniel Kokotajilo, which I've probably absolutely murdered in pronunciation, reckoned that he created this thing called AI 2027, which was a website you could go to, and said that AI would essentially start to destroy humanity in that year, basically. And he's decided that actually, as we've entered 2026, that timeline was a little bit aggressive. So he's put it off a little bit. Just wanted to kind of end with a little bit of good news that prediction of doom is, it's been postponed for a little while longer.
A few more summers to go.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be nice, right? We'll still be doing this, maybe in a couple of years' time. So that's exactly. All right, that's our AI and tech news this week. Shall we move on to our tool of the week? All right, this is one of our favourite things, and Matt, particularly one of your favourite things, which is Claude. So we have Claude Cowork now, and you've been kind of using the code version. What's the Cowork with Claude?
So to take a step back, Claude Code, which was only available previously in the terminal. So this is the sort of anyone using a Windows laptop, Windows PC, not you, Mal, yet.
Yet.
This is the sort of the black DOS box that comes up, and you can type, for really old school nerds, you type CD and then the directory, and it'll open up that folder structure for you.
Still
and
do that.
Those sort of bits. The Claude Code was very much available within that terminal window, and it had access to your local machine, so your C drive, your files, your actual whole set of settings. But it had a range of features that allowed it to do things like generate emails, visit websites, all the things that you almost don't realise ChatGPT and others are doing, but you're able to do those directly from your machine. So people are using Claude Code not just for coding, but they started to say, well, actually, I can use this more as a project manager to go through my to-do list, to pick up tasks, to schedule things into my calendars, to contact people. And so it's becoming really quite progressive, and Anthropic obviously got wind of this. They've seen lots of use cases, and that's caused them not to pivot, but then to advance Claude Code to make it more mass available. And so Claude Cowork has been launched as part of the Claude online experience now. It's a separate tab, if that's the right term, from your Claude chat. And this is where you can actually get it started on your to-do list, on your tasks, and almost use it as that assistant to go off and not just give you an answer to what you need to do, but as an agent who can go away and start to close down some of those things that have been sat around your inbox or sat around your to-do list for quite a while. So I say it's quite an exciting one, but I am a geek.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm on board as well. I think, all those kind of like medium-term tasks that are just like a lot of kind of research, going and finding files, actually then kind of interrogating them, trying to bring them together with some other stuff that from online and all that sort of stuff. You will upload, you give access to your file system. You can it will go and find things. It will then, interrogate them and bring back all of the kind of conclusions and stuff. So I think it's just going to be a huge benefit, and is well worth listeners out there just having a look at it, because it feels like a real start of something that's going to help significantly in the same way as Claude Code helps you and your fellow geeks to kind of code super fast. This is going to help people with their day-to-day, I think, really, really fast. So yeah, well worth a look. It's Claude Cowork, and that is our tool of the week. All right, Matt, I think that's it for this week. Thanks so much for being there. Yeah, looking forward to a busy old week. How's yours shaping up?
I'm going to jump in the car now and drive down to Sittingbourne to see the gang at Quealy & Co. So looking forward to that, and then heading off to Berkshire for the rest of the week after that. So, and you're on your travels off to the home Mecca you refer to it as?
Quite so, yeah. He's got Ipswich and Colchester today. So started in, did London, London, Slough, then Cardiff, Swansea. So we're doing Colchester and Ipswich today, and then tomorrow is the mighty Doncaster and then Hull. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's going to be a busy old week, but looking forward to it very much. Any agents out there, do come along. All right, that's all we've got time for. Thanks so much for listening in. We will see you next week. All the best. Take care.
Take care.